Hi, this is Press of Atlantic City sports editor Mark Melhorn. I'm here with our Eagles beat writer David Weinberg. We're going to talk a little bit about the Eagles' schedule, which was released tonight, along with every other NFL team. And certainly, Dave, some interesting tidbits here to talk about. And if you go online to our website right now, pressofac.com, we've got just a general story that announces the schedule, but we also have Dave's initial predictions, very early predictions for the season this year. But, Dave, let's just talk a little bit about what is unusual or different or interesting about the schedule, I guess starting with week one, right? They're on Monday night.
Right. I was a little bit surprised by that because the Eagles had kind of that late season swoon last year and failed to make the playoffs. So I thought maybe the interest in the team would be down a little bit, amongst the league. But the fact that Chip Kelly had so many of those, off-season moves, and he's kept them in the headlines the whole winter. So
Tim Tebow just this week. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, and Matt Ryan is who they'll be facing. I believe, doesn't he have some Jersey connection, Matt Ryan?
He's from the Philadelphia area. He
Okay.
actually played for St. Joe's Prep, I think, or one of the prep schools up in there.
And I thought there was some Shore connection with him.
Oh,
Wasn't there?
yeah. Oh, actually, there is. Yeah, he used to spend a lot of time in North Wildwood in the summers.
There you
He's
go.
very good friends with some of the lifeguards down there. He used to go to the lifeguard races every year and stuff. So
Yeah, so that's
there is a connection there.
a little interesting there. And then right into a major rivalry the next week with the Dallas Cowboys. Well, first of all, before we do that, maybe we'll just talk a little bit about each game. You can talk about what your prediction is for each game. We'll go back to the Atlanta game. It's a 7:10 start on ESPN. As a sports editor, I'm enjoying the fact that that's a little bit earlier than the usual Monday night start.
Just to break with deadlines, right?
Yeah, exactly. But so look, we talked about Matt Ryan, obviously with the Falcons. What do you think? How do you think that first game's going to play out for the Eagles?
Well, it's funny because when I originally did this, I didn't know what order the games were going to be,
Right.
And so I had them losing to the Falcons originally.
Okay.
But they almost always seem to play very well in their first games of the year, especially under Chip Kelly, because he always has some surprises that people take a while to catch up to. So
Right.
I actually had them winning in the Georgia Dome. So,
Okay, cool. And I'm going to actually ask, we got John Russo here behind the camera. And John, I don't know if anybody's interested in this or watching or not, but if you see any comments, shout them out. Please, if you guys have questions you want to ask of Dave, of the Eagles, of Tebow, of anything Eagles related, Dave does have a column in tomorrow's paper about Tim Tebow. Post them on Twitter, and we'll try to answer them as best we can. All right, so you got them winning week one. Then week two, home against Dallas. Obviously, DeMarco Murray now with the Eagles. I'm sure a lot of emotion with that game as well. How do you, early on see that playing out?
I have the Cowboys winning it.
Oh.
Just because of the way they kind of closed the season against the Eagles last year, and I don't know if Murray's going to be able to be the same running back that he was with the Eagles' offensive line as he was with Dallas. So
True, that's true. Did carry the ball a lot last year.
Yeah, and Dallas's offensive line was much better, or at least on paper. So it'll be interesting to see. But I kind of figure Tony Romo will be able to pull it out for the Cowboys.
All right, and then we go to week three, which is the mess that is the New York Jets. So
Right.
a lot of questions about them. A lot of talk, I think, from some people this year figuring that they might try to get Marcus Mariota. So who knows? That might be, if the Eagles don't get Mariota, that might be the first shot we might see of him. How do you see that game playing out? It is up at the Meadowlands.
Right. I think the Eagles will win that. I think the Jets, they'll probably be a better team as the year goes on. Like late in the year, I wouldn't want to play them, but if you can catch them early, I think that's a good time to do it. So I have the Eagles winning that one.
Yeah, you mentioned that the early in the year, late in the year thing. It is kind of interesting. We've known for weeks now who the Eagles are going to play, but a lot really can depend on when you're going to play those teams as to, like, for example, one thing I see further down, and we'll get to it, the New England defending Super Bowl champion New England Patriots on their schedule.
Right.
I think it's a bit of a bummer for the Eagles that they have to see them in December as opposed to seeing them in September. That might have been a little bit of an easier game for them.
The only break they have, though, there is that they have a few extra days to prepare because they have to play at Detroit on Thanksgiving.
Oh.
So after that, they'll have a few extra days
Well, that's
to rest
true.
and recuperate. So maybe they'll be able to pull the upset.
That is true. That is a good point. But I can't imagine it's fun to play in
No.
New England in December.
No, exactly.
All right, but getting back, we got the first 3 weeks done. We're going to talk about week 4, and that is another away game in Washington. RG3, we think, being their quarterback. I mean, who knows what happens between now and then. How do you see that game playing out?
I have the Eagles winning it. I think Deshaun Jackson will probably go for 200 receiving yards and a couple of touchdowns.
Sure,
But
they'll be jacked up.
this is another situation where I think Washington might be better when they get settled. And know where everybody's playing and who's playing and stuff. But I have the Eagles winning that one as well.
All right, and then it doesn't get any easier. We get the next week, although they are coming home after 2 away games there. Home to host the New Orleans Saints for a 1 o'clock game on the day after my birthday, October 11th.
Okay.
So Drew Brees.
Well, I think you'll have a nice. I think you'll have a nice birthday present.
All right, well that's good to hear. So you think the Eagles will pull that one out?
Yeah, Sean Payton has a lot of connections too. His brother Tom actually lives in there and works in Cape May Courthouse, so there's a little bit of a South Jersey ties there. But the Saints, they really struggled last year. I don't think they're the same team without the 2 guys who are in Philly now, Darren Sproles and Malcolm Jenkins. So I kind of have the Eagles winning that one too. I haven't getting off to a pretty good start.
So that's 4-1, I think, at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then another home game the week after the second primetime game. And one thing that I think is very interesting about this Eagles schedule, it begins the first of 3 weeks where they're going to be playing 8:30 games, either on ESPN or NBC or Sunday or Monday night.
Mm-hmm.
This is a Monday night game. Giants. A lot of emotion last year with that Monday night game with the Victor Cruz injury and stuff
Absolutely,
like that.
yep.
So, sort of a rematch of that. And do you see this as being possibly the first or the second hiccup, I guess, for the Eagles?
No.
No.
I'm not a big Giants believer. It just seems like they always have some issues that prevent them from living up to expectations.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think they're the same team that they were a few years ago. I think Eli might be nearing the end of his run there, and I know. To be honest with you, I took every game just week by week. We're not even looking at like how many wins and losses in a row, but I have them winning again. So I guess they're going to be at the top of the NFC East after
by the bye week.
By the bye week,
because we're talking about Carolina next and Cam Newton, and I think you have them winning as well in that game.
I do. That might be a hiccup though. Carolina's better than what people think, and they play pretty well at home usually. So that might be. I was hesitant to give the Eagles a win there, but I think and especially because they usually seem to stumble the week before the bye. So
that's true.
I might have to revamp that as I go along, but as of now, I have the Eagles winning it.
Yeah, it's the other interesting thing to talk about the bye week, which is going to be the first week in November for them, first weekend in November. That was the other kind of wild card of a discussion I saw or I heard on ESPN today is. You always want your bye to be as in the middle of the season as possible, because you don't want it too early or too late, because of injuries. You're always going to have a certain factor of those, but you could make the argument that this is a bit of a benefit for them. They almost fall right smack in the middle of the season.
Yeah, that tells me that the NFL thinks that the Eagles are going to be pretty good. I think because they usually give the better teams the bye, like at the midpoint of the season, and maybe even a little bit later than that, but. That does come at a perfect time. You have these little nagging injuries that kind of start to creep up after the first few games, and this gives them a chance to heal and get a little bit healthier for the stretch run.
All right, and then after the bye, travel to Dallas, Sunday night game on NBC. DeMarco Murray returns home. You had the Cowboys beating them in the first game, right? Yep.
And I had them sweeping them.
Sweeping them. Oh, how about that?
I do.
Right.
Yeah.
I can see it. At some point, the streak's going to end here.
And I think the Cowboys are going to win the division, so I think that might be the game that separates them between the Eagles and the first and second place.
All right, and then November 15th, back to regular times, although I guess at some point, maybe that's not till December, the flex scheduling kicks in. Although, no, this actually, I think, says that flex scheduling now goes all the way into November. You've got Miami Dolphins at home, and then followed by Tampa Bay at home, which then leads into, once again, the Eagles on Thanksgiving, this time against Detroit, in Detroit. So how do you see those next 3 games going?
I actually have them losing to Miami, believe it or not. I know they had a pretty good year at home last year, the Eagles did, but Miami they seem to be like one of those strange teams that you never figure out what they're going to do. And Sue, when he's not getting kicked out of games, he's one of the better defensive players in the league. So I have that being a stumble at home, and I have the Dolphins pulling the upset. I think they bounce back though the next week against Tampa Bay. Jameis
Winston maybe.
Yeah, he'll be their quarterback, but rookie quarterbacks usually don't fare too well. And I have a feeling that the Eagles defense might be have some things straightened out by then.
And then I believe last year, didn't the Eagles win on Thanksgiving in Dallas?
They destroyed
them. That was a really amazing. And now
that was the highlight of the year.
The highlight of the year, really.
Downhill after that.
Well, it's interesting though, because
last 5 games like they kind of did last year, but. I haven't beaten the Lions though, so that
okay.
That'll give them a little.
All right, a little Thanksgiving boost again. But then, like we mentioned earlier, that next week is New England. They do get that benefit of an extra, a few days rest. But traveling to New England, I'm assuming you have them losing to New England.
Correct.
There you go. Okay, defending Super Bowl champs, Tom Brady.
Yeah. I don't see that. I don't see that as a win.
Yeah, that is a tough game. And then that brings to being one of the more interesting games on the schedule. I kind of hoped it would be earlier, but they host Buffalo. Obviously, the return of LaShawn McCoy. It'll give some interesting fodder for media and discussion and everything like that. I don't know. Do you think McCoy and the Bills will pull it off? Or
I do.
You think there'll be an upset?
Yeah, I think they're going to be like a really strong running team. Greg Roman is their offensive coordinator.
That's right.
Vanderboy at Holy Spirit High School. And he's very good at developing running backs, as he proved with Frank Gore in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. So I think, and LaShawn has an awful lot to prove there. He really took that trade personally and was clearly upset by it. And I think he would like nothing better than to show Chip what he made a big mistake by getting rid of him.
It'll be interesting, I think, to see to some degree if he's healthy by that point. I mean,
that's true.
They are playing them late in the year.
Mm-hmm.
Buffalo, I don't think, is as good as the Eagles were, at least on their offensive line. They might be about the same. But you're right. Ryan wants to run the ball more with him. I would love to see it. I hope he makes it to that point. I hope he doesn't get hurt. I would love to see what happens. I always was a big McCoy fan.
Mm-hmm.
I do think the trade is going to work out better for the Eagles because I think Kiko Alonso is going to be a talented addition for them. But
there's always that caveat about staying healthy, though. It seems like that's with every player they've acquired, Sam Bradford and Ryan Matthews and Kiko Alonso, and everybody has that caveat about when healthy they're really good, but they don't seem to be able to stay healthy. So I'll be.
Yeah, I'm sensing a season preview theme here with. John Russo's here, manning the camera for us. Showed me one of the more funnier things today. We had that story about the Tim Tebow pretzel that everybody saw.
The Sam Bradford one.
Sam Bradford pretzel. That was awesome. I don't know whoever came up with that.
Little bits of nuggets there.
That's right. Little bits and pieces. Right. Everything broken apart.
Yeah.
You could say that about several Eagles.
I was awfully disappointed. The Philly Pretzel Factory in Rio Grande didn't have any Tebow pretzels today.
I think it was limited to just one or two places in Philly. I'll have to go.
They do have. They said they can make them special. You have to order them though.
Oh really?
Like a day in advance or something in the morning.
I might have to get some for opening day.
Yeah, there you go.
Or the preseason or something. All right, so that takes us to the last three games: Arizona and Washington at home, and they end the season at the Giants. So I know you have them. I don't want to give it away, but you have them losing a few more games here. How do you have the Eagles finishing up in those
I have them going
games?
2-1 down the stretch.
Okay.
And a little bit of a surprise. I think Tim Tebow is going to make this football team.
Do you really?
Yeah. A lot of people don't think that, but I think there's a place for him on this team as a short yardage goal line quarterback kind of thing.
I agree.
That's been one of the weaknesses they haven't been able to capitalize on. The read option versatility of the other quarterbacks. I think Tebow gives them that. Plus the fact that the extra point might be becoming a thing of the past. They're thinking of moving it back to like the 15-yard line. If you want to go for two, it'll be at the 1.5-yard line. And I think that's Tebow's strength. That puts it right in his wheelhouse. I think he'll find a way to have a spot on his team, and I think he'll make a difference against the Cardinals.
I mean, if you think about it, all he really has to do is beat out Matt Barkley, and Matt Barkley hasn't shown us much. So
No, he hasn't. Although I happen to think he's a little bit better than what people give him credit for. His rookie year, he was thrown into the Wolves, and he was coming off a shoulder injury. He really didn't have much time to prepare. I think he was probably better suited to help the team last year, but he just didn't get the opportunity.
Yeah, I also think he might have been a better fit in another team system.
Yeah, that's
not
true.
sure that
he's more of a drop back post kind of guy. Yeah.
Not sure that he fits in Chip's system, but
another local connection with the Cardinals, Glenn Carson, the linebacker from Southern Regional.
Yeah,
he had a really nice rookie year, and I think
he should make the team again.
Oh yeah, I think he might even be a starter, to be honest with you.
Well, there you go. All right, so wrapping it up, you have the Eagles doing what?
I have them losing to Washington. I just think they're going to split that series because they always seem to. Nobody seems to sweep that. So I have them.
And that's a Saturday. A Saturday game.
Right?
Jeez, we get every little possible situation here with the Eagles.
Yeah, and then I have them closing with a win at MetLife Stadium against the Giants, sweeping that series, finishing 10-6, and then second place in the NFC East.
Making the playoffs, you think?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
As a wild card team.
As a wild card.
I think Cowboys win the division again.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, I think there's definitely potential for this team to do that.
Yeah, there's just so much uncertainty with them, though. It's going to make for an exciting season, but you just don't know how things are going to play out because there's been so many changes and turnover and Kelly's made a lot of moves that have people scratching their heads. I assume he knows what he's doing. He evidently knows more than I do. So,
Right.
But it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head earlier, too, when you said you look at this schedule, you look at where the bye is, you look at the fact that they're on 6 nationally televised games. We're not the only ones that think the Eagles are at least going to be interested this year.
Right.
So certainly worth watching. Certainly, beyond even Philadelphia area, I think there's a lot of people that are looking at this team, and some people are saying that the Tebow signing is just Chip trying to elevate, throw up interest or whatever. But I certainly look at this schedule. It's definitely not an easy schedule. I don't even know. There might be one gimme, the Buccaneers, maybe on this schedule. I mean, there's not that many easy games.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I think it's pretty challenging.
It's so challenging to try to predict these things.
Well, I know, and that's
the
part
fun
of the fun of it.
Yeah,
right.
it is. But
it's got to be like
we don't even know who's going to be in a team yet.
Right, in a week and a half, we're going to be doing, like I asked you to do a mock draft. That's another thing that I've always sort of like, why do you bother with a mock draft? Well, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's almost never right, but it's still fun. Yeah. This is fun, too. So, like I said, check PressOfAtlanticCity.com for Dave's predictions if you want to read them in more detail. Also look for other Eagles coverage, including his column in tomorrow's paper on Tim Tebow and the Tim Tebow signing. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Can't shut it off?
I just turned it around towards the lake.
Oh, well, is it off or no?
No.
Oh.